We are back once again for another week of NFL and college football talk with Marc Lawrence, PlaybookSports.com and Playbook Experts. That's his latest YouTube channel. Marc, how's it going? Another week.
Another week of college football and pro football in the rearview mirror, Greg, and pretty soon we're going to be talking about just NFL football, but let's get into the college football while we can.
Yep, college football definitely is more exciting at this time of year around the holidays because the games really do matter tons more. You've got rivalry games starting already this week, which, I mean, it used to be where you'd have USC and UCLA were always the last game of the season. You always had the rivalry games, always the last game of the season. That's just, at some cases, it's still true. But in others, like USC and UCLA, fortunately, I think, and that's a good thing, because when you had all of those rivalry games, it was like trying to figure out what are you going to watch. There were so many of them all on the same day and little exposure. Now there's so much exposure, and I'm glad that we have 2 weeks of rivalry games. So that gives us a little bit more opportunity to kind of relax and take in, some of the best games of the season.
It does, and I'm glad it's spread out that way for our purposes as a fan. But I think to the degree of intensity in rivalry games, it's simply not what it used to be. Like you mentioned, the last week of the season, you had Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, all the rivalries you named them, they all played that weekend, and it was really, really something to look forward to. It was almost like bowl week, if you will.
Yeah, sure.
In that sense, Well, now, does Stanford even still know that California is their rival?
I know.
Things like that.
We know. I think they know, but
Yeah.
the rest of the country, no idea.
No, and could care less,
Yeah.
So, but anyway, we've got some juicy games on tap this week that touch in on that a little bit ahead of what might be pure rivalry week next week. But I'm really looking forward to the card.
Want to let everybody know that we did a show. I had Mike Huguenin on from the On3 Network, and Mike's been in the industry for a very long time. So he's overseeing the rise of a new network called On3. So check that out. The video and the link is going to be on the description area of this video. So you can, because what we did, we went over every conference in college football, broke down everything that was important also in the playoff picture. So you can check that out with Mike. For anybody that is here to watch us talk college football, that's definitely a can't miss interview that you want to check out. And we'll continue to do the same thing as we've done, not only talk about the conference pictures, Marc, and the playoff picture just overall, but obviously we're going to go in depth into games. And starting, as always, in the SEC, we know now it's Georgia and LSU. So that's it. Done story. Georgia takes on LSU. And the rest is just about, can LSU not lose so they maintain an outside national championship bid? They're still going to have to beat Georgia no matter what. But if they beat Georgia and lose one of their final 2 games, then it's not going to matter. They're just not going to get in, even if they beat Georgia. But they got Texas A&M next week on the road, and they got UAB at home this week. So take care of business first, and then you set up a win, and we're in the playoffs game against Georgia.
I'm going to say right now, Greg, I think LSU is going to lose a game between now and the SEC championship game.
Oh, okay.
Not that UAB is going to be the culprit, but I know they're probably going to give them a game. And A&M, while they've had this very, very disappointing season, their roster is still loaded with a lot of big 4- and 5-star recruit type players, and a win like that for Jimbo Fisher could sort of be a big Band-Aid for what would be a really bad football season. So I think LSU is going to be tested between now and the SEC title game.
Yeah, let's see. LSU right now still at 40-1, though, to win the national championship. And I still think when you're taking a look at the other teams that are around them, like Clemson's 50-1 and USC's 40-1, I think it's down to, and I look, there's a chance you get Michigan, Ohio State in, but that's kind of, I still think that's a little slim, but it's better than it was now that Alabama's out of the picture. There's still a chance that if Michigan loses to Ohio State in a close game, that both of them might get into the championship game. That's possible. We know Georgia more than likely gets in. I still believe Tennessee's getting in unless they lose. I still think they're going to find a way to get in. And 12-1, again, if you still haven't taken any money on Tennessee yet, even though we've asked you to do that for weeks, 12-1 is still a good number at this point, because if they get into the playoffs, that's going to be half of that. It's going to go down. Don't you agree? It'll be like 5-1 maybe to win the championship.
Unquestionably, anybody that makes the playoffs, the biggest dog will be like 6-1. Only because there's 4 teams, and you can't give that large of a margin away.
Yeah.
So if you feel Tennessee is going to get there, and right now they're playing with their foot on the pedal, trying to win those style points, like you say, I think that might be advantageous to take them now as opposed to waiting until they officially make the playoffs.
And TCU 25-1, so they need to win out in order to have a shot. We know that. And look, there's only a few games left now. So 3 more, and they could do it. I still think it's going to be hard. I still don't think they're going to do it. But 25-1 is not bad, knowing that you control your own destiny. And you do get the game at home next week against Iowa State. Baylor is a team that basically just blew their shot last week, so they may be a little bit down, even though I'm sure they're going to get back up to try to knock off an undefeated team. And then maybe we see the team that we both liked in the beginning of the season taking on TCU in the championship game, and that's Kansas State. Have you ever seen a more Jekyll and Hyde team than Kansas State?
No. Just when you don't think they're going to be able to play, they play good.
Yeah, they blow out teams.
Yes, they do. They don't just win. 48-0, they'll lay on you.
Yeah. It's like, what is that? And then the next week they lose.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, at home. Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know, but it does look like K-State maybe could be that team taking on. And I wouldn't want if I'm TCU, I want nothing to do with Kansas State in the chance, because you don't know what's going to happen with that team. So that's why I think it's going to be tough for TCU. But still, 25-1, I'd sprinkle a little bit of money there, and that's why I think LSU. If you believe that they have a good chance to lose before Georgia, then okay, forget it, because then they still have to beat Georgia as well. But if you think that LSU is going to win the next 2, and it's all about beating Georgia to get in, well, we're talking 40-1. And I'm not saying that means they're going to win the championship. They still have to win 2 more big games in the playoffs. Still a lot of work. But we're talking 40-1 at this time of year, Mark. I mean, we're not 1 or 2 weeks into the season. There's only a few more games left, and I think 40-1 is still not a bad number.
Well, the question you have to ask yourself is, will wins over Birmingham, A&M, and then Georgia get them into the playoffs?
Yes.
2-loss Southeast Conference champion, probably so. That might be the first time we'll see that, because they would then be a Southeast Conference champion. They would have knocked off the number 1 team in the country.
And then we might get 3 SEC teams.
Then we might, exactly.
Because if TCU loses, because Tennessee is going to go, well, you can't get LSU in. We beat LSU by like 30 on their home turf, so that ain't going to work. So they're just going to go Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, Big Ten winner, as long as TCU loses, and they'll figure out a way to forget the Pac-12 as they always do, even though I think the Pac-12 will kind of take care of itself. So, yeah, the door's open for 3 SEC teams. People were complaining about 2 SEC teams. Just imagine if they get 3 this year out of 4.
And one of them a 2-loss team.
Yeah. Yeah. And that could realistically happen. But it's going to take LSU beating Georgia. That is not going to be so easy. So, all right. So that's what's going on as far as the futures. Now let's take a look, diving into the SEC. Let's do that by talking about I guess you could say it's the biggest game would be the Georgia-Kentucky game, just because Georgia is a top-ranked team and Kentucky has played them reasonably tough over the last few years. But there's really not that big SEC game this week.
No, not a marquee game per se. There's not, no. And you could say maybe this is because Georgia's number 1. Make that case, arguably, I guess. But again, this is also the time of the year, remember, Greg, that this is when the SEC schedules these high schools.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it's like, I guess Birmingham was as close to a high school as LSU could get for this particular week. I think half of the games are against really FCS type football teams. So there won't be marquee games. Usually not the case for the SEC, second to the last week of the season.
Yeah, Florida at Vandy. By the way, Vandy came through for us last week
Yes, they did. That was a nice call. Yep.
over Florida. That was a 6. And look, we talked about this before. I had 5 money line plays last week. Vandy was the only one that hit, and I made money on it.
How about that? Yep.
Based on the formula of putting $100 on all 5, I had 4 losers minus 400, Vandy plus 650 plus 250. By
Right.
the way, I don't know if you knew this, but Temple had a lead over Houston with a minute and a half left in the football game.
Yeah, in that game as well. Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that would have been really good.
Yeah, and that would have also been maybe uh, Temple getting another coach fired. If
Yeah,
it,
could have. Or
Right.
maybe the South Florida AD might have went, well, maybe not so bad after all. Maybe I shouldn't have fired Jeff Scott. But all right, so yeah, there goes that. Auburn, Western Kentucky. Now, initially you looked at it and you're like, oh yeah, maybe this is a nice little upset kind of deal here. But then you looked at the odds and you're like, well, wait a second. Now they're giving a lot of respect to Western Kentucky, or maybe no respect to Auburn. And I just think Auburn has played completely different since they've changed coaches. I know it's only been a small sampling size, but he's got the team playing really hard. And right now, the way they're playing, I think they're playing like a 500 SEC team. The season's over, basically. They're going to have to win their next 2 to go to a bowl, including upset Alabama. But they're playing now so basically what I'm saying is a 500 SEC team only giving 4 against Western Kentucky from the Conference USA. I'm sorry, I got to take Auburn.
Well, there are reasons, okay, that they're only getting 8 points in a football game like this. Western Kentucky can play.
4 points.
4 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. They can play, and
Yes. They got a much more explosive offense.
yes, they do. A much more explosive offense. They do have Alabama next week. Does Auburn? I don't know if Cadillac Williams will want to let that be whispered about because he's doing a pretty nice job and building some credibility.
Well, again, the thing is, you win this game. Now you play Alabama with a chance to not only beat them, but to go bowling.
Yes.
You'll ruin all that by losing this week.
Absolutely. But I think this is a nice situation for Western Kentucky. You got a Sun Belt Conference team playing a Southeast Conference team, and oftentimes those Southeast Conference teams will look down to teams like this. Auburn doesn't know this point spread's only 4 points. They just know that they're playing a Sun Belt Conference team. And they're coming off of a good effort, and they've got Alabama up next. Could they look down to the level of Western Kentucky? Absolutely, they could. And if they do, they could be trouble for this football team. That's what Cadillac Williams is there for, to make sure that that doesn't happen. But I do like the work of Western Kentucky so far this football season. They bring some pretty nice numbers into this game. We've called them out in our newsletter this particular week. A lot of great stats inside this contest. Tyson Helton, their head coach, former head coach was it USC?
That was the other Helton.
Oh, Clay Helton. Clay Helton was the other guy. Yes, brother of the former.
Tyson is definitely getting. There's some people who believe that he could get a Power 5 job. He's done a nice job here the last couple of years, and look, he's done a nice job. Maybe not X's and O's, but he's been very shrewd. He made the move to get those FCS coach and Zappy to come over for one season, and he gets another FCS. Or was he a Division II quarterback, this kid that he just brought in this year? So hey, you know what? That's the game in college football, recruiting and knowing how to hire the right coaches. And so, yeah, I mean, he might get a job. He's definitely being looked at.
Well, the Western Kentucky's really fared well against the SEC themselves. They had not been intimidated. They've covered 7 of the 10 times they played them. And in fact, as single-digit dogs, they're 3-0 straight up end at the spread. So this is a role they've proven they can handle before in the past. I like Western Kentucky here in the spot. I'm with you. I thought the number come up a little bit short, but the odds makers know what they're doing. I'm not going to second guess them. I'm going to look more for Auburn to play down to Western Kentucky's level.
Yeah, here's the thing, and this is of course from the playbook guide. Okay, this is the big one. Western Kentucky 15-1 against the spread as dogs versus losing teams.
How nice is that?
Yeah. So
Yep.
that's why it was not very easy for me to take Auburn. But again, this is an SEC team that I just really like. Look, remember I told you I had that conversation with Brian Matthews, who covers Auburn a couple weeks ago after the firing, and he thought that this team was going to start. That they really like Cadillac Williams, and he gave us kind of like the inside scoop. Well, I tried to take advantage of it in the game against Mississippi State. They almost pulled out a big upset there, covered the spread, and then they pulled off the really nice win last week. So I'm just riding that. I've got him the last 2 weeks, and I'm just going to ride it. So
I get it totally.
yeah,
You don't jump off that merry-go-round
yeah.
when it's rolling. Exactly.
By the way, I'm also not going to jump off of Tennessee right now. Because Tennessee, I liked them last week, and I'm liking them again this week. I know it's 3 touchdowns, and I completely get that, but this is the team you love to take with big spreads because they could score 3 touchdowns in 5 minutes if they have to. And I just don't like what I've seen out of South Carolina lately. Their biggest wins this year are against disappointing Kentucky and Texas A&M. Their last 3 games, their only win was the Vanderbilt win. And they're 1-8 against the spread at home versus teams with an 800 or higher winning percentage. So I'm taking Tennessee, even though it's a big spread.
Well, again, that's another merry-go-round you've been on with Tennessee, and there's no sense in getting off of that right now. And especially with Tennessee showing all the signs of wanting to go out and really run the score up in football games, and the condition that South Carolina is in right now, I have to admit that score can be run up on this team.
Ole Miss Arkansas is going to be all up to KJ Jefferson, really. I think he's going to play, but you never know. They had an exciting game last year, these two teams. But I just think Ole Miss, after the 7-0 start and the loss last week, I just get the feeling that they got a hangover. And now they're in a who cares game. And I think this is a good spot to take Arkansas because they need the game to get bowl eligibility.
I think it's a real good spot to take Arkansas here. They've got 5 wins. They got to win this game or next week 1. And KJ Jefferson is the word I'm hearing is he's probable. And if he plays, he's a huge difference maker for this football team. Huge difference maker. You look at the series history here. I believe it's 5 of the last 7 games have been decided by an average of 2.5 points a game. A lot of close call games inside this series here. I like this game pretty well, and you've also got an Arkansas football team that's really, really good in last home games of the season. I'm talking like 16-3 to the spread, really good. So this is a spot where I think Ole Miss can come up flat. They just came real close, like horseshoes. They pitched it. They didn't throw a ringer. They got a point, but they didn't get the ringer against Alabama. And I looked that up in my database, and you find out teams that play Alabama lose the game but cover the spread, play better than the odds makers anticipated, are very, very poor plays when they're on the road the next game.
Okay.
So maybe the theory and the thought being they left that game on the field against Alabama. So I think it's a nice spot for Arkansas here, and I wouldn't be surprised if they pull the rug out on Mississippi in this game as well.
Speaking of that game, the frustration. Now, I only had them on my picks as taking the points, but as I said, I threw a few bucks on the money line. Pulling my hair out with the play calling at the end of that. The second to last drive, they get the ball. They're in reasonable field position on Alabama's side. The last 3 plays of the drive, we do not see Judkins getting a touch, who's clearly the best player on the football field. This is more of a running football team this season. They're not a passing team. Jackson Dart's not a good big-time passer yet. Maybe he never will be. Then the last drive, Judkins makes a tremendous, 30-yard run to get them into field position again. The last 4 plays, Judkins doesn't get touched. Not a touch again. I mean, that's just terrible play calling. Sorry. Awful.
Well, you're talking about Lane Kiffin here, okay? So, am I stunned? No. Was it poor play calling? Yes. No surprise. I think if he had to do it all over again, he probably should have had an assistant in his ear, chewing in his ear. Come on, man, let's ride the horse that got us here. But, it's all hindsight right now, and, they end up losing the game. So we'll see whether they can recover or not.
Okay, let's now make our way over to the Big Ten. And, again, Ohio State, Michigan, pretty much. This is what we're looking at. I don't think Michigan, the way Illinois is playing right now, and it looks like their star running back could play, but he's banged up. And Illinois is now all of a sudden playing their worst football of the year at the wrong time, heading into the big house. Ohio State, they're also going to be fine. Maryland, I think. What do you think? Who has the tougher matchup? Ohio State at Maryland or Illinois at Michigan?
Well, Maryland's got a little bit more comfort being at home, I would say, as opposed to being up in Michigan in that cavernous stadium, for one thing. The other thing is we do a thing called as the news gets tighter, and what it is teams that are 10-0 or better when they're on the road and laying points this time of the year really struggle. That's the role for Ohio State at Maryland in this particular football game. It's also the role, by the way, for Georgia, and also the role for TCU this week. So we'll see how those news plays do this week. But I do like a little bit of Maryland here because of that. And I also like Illinois. I know you mentioned about playing their worst ball of the season, but the truth of the matter is they got a hellacious defense, and you got the Buckeyes 1-7 against the spread before Michigan, and Michigan terrible numbers before Ohio State. It just makes sense. It doesn't matter. It's almost as if you put tape over the names of their opponents and just play to the way they played. The history tells us before in the past. You got to play the dogs in both of those football games.
All right, that's probably not a bad idea. And taking a look at the rest of the Big Ten, let's see. Oh, by the way, just keep in mind, Michigan has, even though their offense is not exploding, the defense, get this, they have only given up more than 17 points once all season. That was Maryland when they gave up 27. They have covered the last 4 games this season by 112 points. That's how much they beat their opponents combined in the last 4 games. That's how good their defense is playing. Illinois, 2-0, straight up and against the spread, is a dog this year. So whenever they're a dog, they've come up really well. And so maybe that's what they need. Meanwhile, moving on over to some of the games that really matter, and it all lies in the West. And can we see Iowa again in the Big Ten championship game? Lord, I certainly hope not. And I'm not making picks from my heart, but this is one I always look at from the Playbook magazine, and it's here again. Iowa, now 0-12 against the spread in their last 12, following 3 consecutive spread wins. That's exactly the spot they're in again. And if they don't cover the spread in this one, they're going to lose. So I guess they could lose by 2. But anyway, fact is, I just think that Minnesota is also playing pretty decent at the same time. The Balt teams are 3-0, straight up ATS last 3. Minnesota's at home. And look, remember in the beginning, we did say Minnesota could be a sleeper when the season began, and we also said a few weeks ago that, yeah, maybe this is Minnesota's time. Then Iowa all of a sudden starts winning, and it's like, okay, maybe it's Iowa again. But this is it. This is PJ Fleck's chance at home. Let's finally take advantage of this spot, beat Iowa, and put ourselves in a position that doesn't clinch the Big Ten championship game, because they would need Illinois to lose one of their last 2 and Purdue to lose one of the last 2. So a lot more work for Minnesota to get into the Big Ten championship game than Iowa. Iowa just needs to win their final 2.
Okay, while you were talking and going on that, I wrote up this game, this Iowa-Minnesota game, and what jumped off the page to me is we put this in our midweek alert newsletter. That's what I just brought up because I want to read these numbers to you and to the viewers out there as well. What you've got here are 2 teams that are going totally in opposite directions right now. This is a Michigan football team that when they began the football season, they were winning the stats in those football games. Let me get the number here. 543 yards a game in their first 4 games.
Which team?
Minnesota.
Minnesota, okay. Yeah, I remember this. We went over this actually a few weeks ago.
Right. So 543 yards a game their first 4 games. Their last 6 games, they're winning, or that's not winning, they're averaging 543.
Okay.
Their last 6 games, they're averaging 311 yards a game. That's 232 yards that have disappeared on this football team over the last courses. Now here's Iowa. The same scenario. They struggle really poorly in the beginning of the season. A football team, they averaged 227 yards to begin the football season. Now they're averaging 307 yards a game. That's an 80-yard improvement for Iowa. So you've got improvement going both ways.
Absolutely.
Here. And the guy that's improving is the underdog in this football game. That's why I got to write Iowa in this contest.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see that. I really can. And by the way, Iowa also needs Illinois to lose to Michigan. I'm just predicting that, big prediction that that's going to happen. So yeah, so it's really opened up when you look at it. So just to be clear, so Iowa needs to win their final two, and Illinois must lose at least one game. Minnesota needs to win their both games and have Illinois and Purdue at least lose once. And Purdue in a better situation because they host Northwestern and then they're at Indiana. So might be kind of hard for Purdue to lose a game. So even if Minnesota wins this game against Iowa, no clinch that Minnesota wins this division. So bottom line, there's still football to be played. Next week, we'll have a much clearer picture of what's going on in the Big Ten West. And really, does it matter? Because whoever wins the Big Ten West has still got to play either Michigan or Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, and we kind of have a good feeling on how that's going to go.
Well, if they were in the National Football League in the NFC East division, they would be the NFC least. They're the Big Ten least West division. It doesn't matter because whoever wins this mediocre division is going to get slaughtered in the Big Ten championship game, whether it's Michigan or Ohio State. It's nice to see the battle royale going on right now because they're playing for position, and you can't tell these teams that they're not any good. They're just not up to caliber. So we're just handicapping what's out there here right now, and all those possibilities do exist here. I think you need a mathematician to figure out, who's got the best chance to win the Big Ten West right now.
Yeah. Who do you think has the best chance of competing for against Michigan or Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game?
Well, certainly not Iowa. Okay, their defense would hold them in there. But their offense would not even make an appearance. Okay, same thing. You're talking for Illinois, Purdue. They're just a cut above mediocre, if you will. I like Jeff Brom as a coach. I think he can game plan something.
Especially because there'll be a dog.
Yeah, there'll be a dog, right?
That's always their best spot.
And Minnesota, they've got Tanner Morgan, the quarterback, a 4-year quarterback. P.J. Fleck. They might be the best chance, Minnesota. Only if for no other reason, whoever it is, Michigan or Ohio State, they're not going to play up to that level. I mean, they'll probably try and put a show on if either of them are in the running for the number one spot in the final college football poll ranking. If perhaps Georgia slips up somewhere. But the truth is I think if it's Minnesota playing either of those two teams here, they could play down to Minnesota's level here. I think the Minnesota defense could step up. So my answer to that, my long-winded answer would be Minnesota.
Yeah, but bottom line is nobody wants to see Iowa in there. That's for sure.
No.
Unless you're an Iowa fan. Okay, let's see. There's some other games really of no consequence. Again, Purdue's taking on Northwestern. Purdue 0-3 in their last. 0-3 this year as a favorite against the spread. So again, they're much better in the dog role. So I could see. And by the way, the road team in the series has won and covered the last 4. So I could actually see Northwestern covering this game. It's a big spread. It's about 19. Wisconsin, Nebraska. Wisconsin's still in the race. They're a 10.5-point favorite at Northwestern. And Northwestern, at Nebraska. Wisconsin has beaten Nebraska 7 straight times. Nebraska 0-3 straight up ATS as a home dog this year. So,
yeah, not a lot of interest in either of those games. No. They're also ran type football teams, and not a lot of intrigue in the games either. So I'm going to take a pass both ways.
I do like Michigan State against Indiana. They're only a 10-point favorite. They need a win for bowl eligibility. On the other hand, Indiana's playing for nothing. I can see them looking ahead to their rival next week against Purdue, as maybe that's the last game of the season. We're at home. Maybe we can knock our rivals out. So I don't think there's going to be any incentive for Indiana this week. They're 2-6 against the spread in their last 8. They've lost 7 straight games, and the favorite in the series has won 5 straight and covered 4 of 5. So I think Michigan State should handle Indiana in this one.
Well, thanks for reminding me, Greg, that Purdue and Indiana are a rivalry. There's one of those ones that kind of got lost, if you will, in the shuffle. But
that's one you won't want to miss.
That's exactly right.
That's you don't know how heated that is unless you live there. All right, ACC. Let's turn our attention to the ACC, and just like the SEC, we know what's going on. in the ACC. It's going to be Clemson and North Carolina. So there you go. And by the way, do you know a spread in that game right now? And if not, what do you think the spread should be?
I haven't, and that was a good question. I probably should have thought to look at that. I don't know if I've seen. I know I haven't seen one, but the game being at a neutral field, that's correct, up in Georgia.
Charlotte. Oh,
Charlotte.
no, you're talking about the ACC game?
ACC
Yeah, it's
title
in
game.
Charlotte.
In Charlotte, okay. Being a neutral site game, I would say Clemson will come in about 8 in that range.
That sounds about right. And you know what? I think I'd take North Carolina. Their offense is explosive enough that you get the feeling that even if they're down 13 with a few minutes to go, that they could probably backdoor cover if you need it. But and Clemson has not like been this team this season that's wowing us. So it's about their defense. It's going to be defense against offense, and unfortunately, in that matchup, we kind of know what usually happens. Defense usually prevails, but I think it'd be a good game.
I think it'll be a good game. The problem with Clemson's defense is not what it was supposed to be this year. If it were, we'd be talking about a really good Clemson football team. Their offense hasn't obviously carried any workload or their weight at all. So it ultimately will be that defense that they're supposed to be good against this North Carolina offense. But this North Carolina defense is a sieve. I mean, just an absolute sieve. I think they've allowed season-high yards 5 times this year. And there's only one team worse than that, and that's Hawaii, from a defensive perspective.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not good company.
No, not good company at all. No.
All right. So as far as the ACC this week, Miami's at Clemson. Miami got up to Schneid last week. The spread Schneid. But because of that, I'm going right back on Clemson. No way they're covering 2 straight. Clemson will probably just whip the heck out of them because of their defense. And how about this? Clemson's covered 15 straight when they take on an opponent with a less than 666 winning percentage coming off an upset win. So I think they're going to go 16 straight. By the way, they've covered that scenario once this year. So that's why I'm jumping right back on Clemson in that one. And just like Tennessee, North Carolina is a 21-point favorite in their game against Georgia Tech. And I'm taking North Carolina in that one, just like I'm taking Tennessee, because Georgia Tech's going to be throwing out their 3rd string quarterback, and their 2nd stringer wasn't very good.
Wow. And huge edge to Drake May in that football game.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, he's in the Heisman Trophy talk.
Yeah.
For goodness sake.
I can't believe C.J. Stroud's leading the Heisman Trophy talk. I mean, what the heck has he done?
Well,
I mean, he puts up video game numbers. All right, there you go, Heisman. Video game numbers. I mean, what's his Heisman moment? What has he done? Show me, tell me.
I don't think there's been a Heisman moment, a game yet. I mean, maybe it happens in the Michigan game.
Maybe. And then I'm thumbs up. Give it to him. But
exactly.
I don't know how you give it to him right now. Again, to me, how is it not Max Duggan?
Well, I understand, and that's where in truth the Heisman's all about, are players like him.
Yes, should be.
Taking an unsung team to new levels, and now being ranked number 4 in the country. My goodness, number 4 in the college football playoff. He should definitely be, realistically, 1. I think in the Heisman Trophy race. I think he should be, but you've got Ohio State, and because it's Ohio State, they're going to carry a little more weight.
Yeah, I know. That's the way it is. Okay, now, by the way, I also like Liberty. They're a 10-point favorite against Virginia Tech. I know that they got caught by UConn, and we'll get into UConn a little bit later. But hey, Liberty, when they play these games that they have to play and show everybody that, hey, we're not a bad football program, like when they have to prove themselves, like against Arkansas and BYU, that's when they show up big. And I expect them to do the same because they're playing an ACC team that's miserable. Virginia Tech's lost 7 straight games, and I just got to think Liberty is going to feel real good about whipping them on Saturday.
Well, that's that role of Hugh Freeze. He just eats up on sub-333 opponents, just eats them up, straight up and to the spread. I think he's got some massive straight-up winning record going there. So he's a cripple shooter, and Virginia Tech is definitely a football team on crutches right now.
Okay, and then another game I wanted to mention is Duke. Love the way Duke, of course, has played this season. We've talked about it since the very beginning when they started surprising people early on. This is a good ACC football team. Not a great one, but a good one. I think they're just as good as Pitt. Pitt has not had a great season. So to me, whenever I get games where I think it's a flip of a coin, I think either team can win, and one of those teams is a 2.5 on the money line. I'm jumping on that usually 9 times out of 10. That's why I'm taking Duke in the money line to pull off the upset.
I agree with you. I like this Duke football team. Mike Elko's done a nice job, just changing the complexion of this team completely this year, and they can carry some nice momentum going into a bowl game this year. Like I said before, they're the type of team I don't think nobody will want to play, and I think especially come a bowl game, I think they're going to also continue to play hard all the way out.
All right, now we'll remove ourselves from the ACC and talk about the Big 12 with TCU clinching a spot in the championship game. Kansas State clinches if they win their final two. They start with the game at West Virginia, and then one of those rivalry games that cannot be missed next week, Mark. Kansas at Kansas State. Probably going to be the biggest Kansas State matchup maybe since I've been born. I don't even remember a game of that much importance. That if Kansas State wins this week and needs a win to go to the Big 12 championship game, knowing Kansas is also bowl eligible in the same season, has to be the biggest rivalry game in their history since I've been paying attention, at least.
Yes, on the football field for sure.
Yes.
And that's going to be a really highly anticipated game. I just hope Kansas doesn't go backwards this week just to kind of take some tarnish on the great season that they've had here right now. But that will be a heck of a football game. Let Kansas State win and let that game become very important. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, so Kansas State, because again, that's why I'm not touching the game. I don't know what we're getting from Kansas State. They've beaten Oklahoma State and Baylor by a 79-3 margin.
Wow.
I mean, that's like, that's like 2020 Oklahoma.
Those are Woody Hayes numbers.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, what in the world?
Bo Schembechler numbers.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, stay away from that one. But West Virginia needs 2 wins for bowl eligibility.
And to save Neil Brown's job, yes.
New AD. And that just says everything, doesn't it?
It does, because a new one comes in and, out goes everybody,
TCU at Baylor, so we know about this. How about this working against TCU? And I'm playing against it, but I'm just riding this TCU deal like last week. Remember we were wondering why TCU was getting 8 points from Texas as an undefeated team?
Worst line of the year, Greg. Worst line of the year. Not that it's over, okay? And we felt that way going in, but it sure proved to be that way when the game ended. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Sure.
Go ahead.
And so here's the spread line on the Playbook magazine that was completely against TCU. They're 1-16 against the spread in the last 17 as a favorite of more than 3 when they come off an upset win. And one of those games happened this year. So they're 0-1 in that spot. And so, yeah, that's not good. But like I said, I just got to ride this TCU thing. Not if they're a 7-point favorite or a 6-point favorite, but they're a 2-point favorite. So it's basically they win, they cover kind of deal. They're undefeated, so that's why I'm going with them. I just don't know what to expect from Baylor, because that was just, they were playing their best football of the year, and then they just got whooped up by Kansas State last week at home. That was just incredible how that happened.
Well, that's that Chris Kleiman factor. You never know when it's coming, smack you around when you least suspect it. I think this is an ideal spot for Baylor in this football game for a couple of reasons. Number one, TCU with the noose around their neck. Number two, TCU beat Baylor last year as a favorite, or as a dog, I'm sorry. Now the roles reverse in this particular football game. And you've got the defending conference champion, now a home underdog, against the new up-and-coming, what looks to be champion here. I think this is the game you're going to see Baylor play their best game of the season here. I think TCU takes their first loss of the year.
By the way, Baylor's not out of it yet. So there are Kansas State, again, in the driver's seat. But let's say Kansas State loses. Right now, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Texas, and K-State, if K-State were to lose, would all have 3 losses. So now you're starting to get all sorts of... So next week, we're going to know a lot better. But if Baylor wins, then there's still hope, I would think, that when we talk next week, there'll be some, scenario we'll be going over of how Baylor could still get into the championship game. So this is an important game still for Baylor to try to get into a second matchup with TCU in the championship game. So we'll see how that goes. And then you talked also about Kansas, Texas. See, I look at this almost like the Ole Miss game with Texas with the in this situation, because there has to be a hangover. Has to be. When you are supposed to win like that, you're supposed to knock off the undefeated TCU team and all that kind of stuff, and you score 3 offensive points. I mean, Tennessee's not playing defense like Michigan and Illinois. I mean, TCU's winning because of their offense. Honestly, I didn't even understand the entire game, how it was 17-3 at one point. I'm like, or it was 3-0. I'm like, what is going on here? Is this a Big 12 game? I couldn't figure it out. But anyway, so, and plus, and more importantly, why I'm taking Kansas and the 9, because we talked about this for most of the season, Lance Leipold, now 27-9 against the spread as a home FBS head coach, including 4-0 this season with Kansas. So I'm going to ride. And they've beaten Texas twice in the last 5 matchups and covered all 5. So I'm taking, now I'll sprinkle a couple on the money line, which is almost 3-1, but I'm definitely taking the 9.
I'm 100% with you behind this play. I've been anti-Texas the whole season here. I just think they're a fraud. They were exposed last week, and they come into this football game. They've been out-yarded 4 straight games in a row. They're doing it with smoke and mirrors. Steve Sarkisian, he's hanging on to his job, and I think he's close to being exposed here, okay? And if he loses to Kansas, he's got some splaining to do, okay? And I think this is an ideal spot for Kansas to expose Texas in this game. I'm with you.
Well, you know what that means. Look out for Jeff Traylor.
Here we go. He's going to knock around one of those schools in the state of Texas, for sure.
Okay, and Texas Tech needs a win to be bowl eligible. They're at Iowa State. Iowa State needs 2 wins for bowl eligibility. Iowa State is a 3.5-point favorite in that one. So that should be a good one. And then the last one, the Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. And from what I hear, these 2 teams aren't going to play each other every year anymore. Because with Oklahoma leaving the conference, this is a rivalry that's going to go kaput. That's sorry to see, but that's the new college football. But how do I not take Oklahoma State? I understand that they had a couple of bad games there, but they righted the ship last week, and our boy Spencer Sanders came off the bench, came off the injury pile and gutted it out. He says there's nothing going to stop him from playing this game. Oklahoma, what are they doing as a 7-point favorite over any team with a pulse? I mean, Oklahoma's dropped 6 of the last 7 games. They're 1-6 ATS last 7. They're only 2-5 straight up in their last 7. I just, come on, I'm getting 7 points in this spot, and I could throw a few bucks on the money line. Absolutely taking the Cowboys.
Well, I would say it might be safe to say that of all the college football head coaching hires, Oklahoma made the worst so far this football season here. You're bringing a former defensive coordinator in who really doesn't know a lot about offense, and it's really showing. But what's worse is their defense is rotten.
Yeah.
Just rotten. So I'm with you. There's nothing about Oklahoma you can like in this football game. It's a name and reputation type points.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And Oklahoma State is very, very capable. I know they went into a lull. They started out like a house of fire. They went into a lull. But the key here is, as you mentioned, Sanders is back, and he's the whole key to that success of that football team.
All right, now we go to the Pac-12, and boy, all of a sudden, wide open after the Washington upset over Oregon. A very crazy scenario at the end of the game last week, because the game was tied, and Nix gets hurt. Now, I'm not even sure. I was interested to know what might have happened if Nix did not get hurt and it was 4th and 4 and they settled for the field goal. Would they have gone for the touchdown? They might have, but he gets hurt. They kick the field goal. Washington comes back down, ties the game now. Because Nix is hurt, they go to their backup. Very green young player. What do? Run, run, run. And now it's 4th and 1. And what do? They go for it at their own, 30? They go for it.
Absolutely terrible.
And it's not a quarterback sneak. Like, I'm just going to run up to the guy and I'm going to, okay, maybe I'll be okay with that. But they stay in their shotgun offense, hand the ball off, and the dude slips. And it's like, what are you doing? Why don't you just punt the? So anyway, here's the thing: they give up the lead, and the Knicks comes back. So that's where I was confused, because was he hurt still just for those, couple of minutes, and then now he was ready to play again? Or was it, well, we weren't going to bring him in unless we got behind? I certainly hope that wasn't the case,
Well,
because you bet if he was in when you were behind, you should have put him in when you were tied.
for sure. Unless the condition worsened. I know he hasn't practiced a lot this week, and that's the reason this game is gone. The favorite has switched in the football game.
Yes.
That's all because of that. So I did like Oregon in this football game because of the double revenge incentive for them being knocked out of that championship game last year, twice last football season. And they look really appealing now as a home underdog, but I got to have Bo Nix in there. You don't have Nix, you don't have a play.
Yeah, absolutely. And but for me, it's like, especially after what happened last week, I'm like, now I just can't trust Oregon and Utah. They had their number last year, and now I just feel like I'm just going to hang with this Utah team. Who, by the way, if you look at it, yes, they lost that game to UCLA. And the first game of the season, but they beat USC, they crushed Oregon State, they beat a good Washington State team away without their quarterback. On the other side, Oregon beats up UCLA, which is a good matchup indicator. But besides that, they needed a comeback win at Washington State, and they have no other impressive wins on their resume. So I just think Utah and Oregon are very even. I really do. But I actually think Utah is a little bit better because they've been there. They've done that. The young coach against the old coach. But the Knicks thing kind of pushes it over the top for me. Not that he doesn't play, but that I don't trust if he plays that he's going to be anywhere near 100% to be able to counter a very good Utah team.
Well, that's part of the question here. Sometimes people will be in their quest of ferreting out injuries, and they get the word that, okay, he's gone from questionable to probable. Then all of a sudden you say, okay, good, I've got my guy.
Yeah.
Well, what condition is your guy?
Yes.
That's the question here. It could be the same thing with KJ Jefferson.
Absolutely, yes.
In the football game, what shape is he going to be, and what condition is he going to be? So those are the things we don't know. Only the trainer and the player knows. So unless you see Bo Nix in the field warming up and running sprints and doing all those good things, I'm going to watch this game. Is all I'm going to do.
And the difference, in my mind, when you're thinking about, say, both those situations, is at least Arkansas, even without Jefferson, lost to LSU by just 3 points, and they're taking on an Ole Miss team that might be playing. Well, they will be playing a game like for nothing, and so, but Knicks going up against Utah, a team that's trying to win the game for a Pac-12 championship. So it's a completely different scenario where if you're thinking they're both equal, I'm a lot more comfortable guessing that even if Jefferson doesn't play, I'm still going to ride Arkansas and feel like I got a shot. Oregon's got no shot if Nix doesn't play, and a much lesser chance if he's not anywhere near 100%.
Well, we saw Arkansas last week rally around that star quarterback. Now, the backup didn't do well.
But the number 2 guy stunk, and they brought in the number 3 guy, and he actually did okay.
Yeah, so it might be the number 3 guy this week.
Yeah.
So that would be his chance. So it would be his chance to rally around.
Yeah.
So it could work in their favor that way as well.
Okay, USC UCLA. So we got a really great rivalry once again. These two teams, UCLA. I've been saying it all year, and this is what I like about doing this show, and this is why every time I try to say it as much as possible. Whenever we give out all this information, like saying, hey, look out for Stanford. The reason I'm taking them this week in the upset is because if you take a look at it, the last 2 years, they've always upset somebody, blah, blah, blah. Well, I lost on that one, but 2 weeks later, they went to Notre Dame. They pull off the upset. I've been saying all year, Jedd Fisch, he's going to pull off that upset, but it's probably going to be at home because they're not good enough to beat a good team on the road. So I kept taking them at home. They blew all those chances. They go on the road against Utah the week before. They got destroyed. And then why would I think they'd win that game against UCLA and then they win that game? So, again, but the point was Jedd Fisch is going to get his win. You just got to get him at the right time. And so But for UCLA, that's just a really bad time to lose a football game because they were with all these other teams right in the mix for the Pac-12 championship, and they blew it. Now they pretty much have little chance to get it done. If USC beats UCLA, they will go to the championship game, and that's exactly what I think is going to happen.
Well, that's the incentive here, obviously, now for Southern Cal, but this is still a real rivalry game. There's also incentive for Southern Cal here in the fact that they were blasted last year, 62-33. UCLA just took them out, hung them up, and let them dry out. So big time revenge for Southern Cal in this football contest. But this becomes UCLA's football game of the year because of what they blew last week. And if you go inside and look at these numbers here, this is Lincoln Riley, the head coach of Southern Cal, has never been any good in his career as a conference road favorite. He's really struggled all throughout his career. That's the role he's going to assume here. Now, I know it's a cross-town rivalry, and there's not much travel at all here, but it's not going to be the comfy confines of home. And you look at Chip Kelly, he's been really, really good in the role of a home underdog. So the combination of the two, along with the fact that I think UCLA could point for this and say, hey, this is our game here. I'm going to play the points with UCLA.
If Utah, whoever wins the game between Utah and Oregon, will need to win their final game to clinch the Pac-12 championship game. So just keep that in mind. The winner of the Utah-Oregon game will be in the driver's seat. Now, Utah will be at Colorado next week. So if they win this game against Oregon, just hand them the tickets and the accommodations for the Pac-12 championship game. But Oregon would have to go to Oregon State to still clinch. So Oregon's got work to do, even if they beat Utah on Saturday. Okay, now let's talk about. I said we'll get to this team in a minute. Let's get to this team now, and we've already mentioned them quite a bit this season, especially after they came through for me a month ago in the 19-point upset against Fresno, and that's Connecticut. And they clinched their chance, and it's unbelievable. What a season. And that is, to me, unbelievable. I don't like to use that word very often. I tend to use incredible and such, but unbelievable, yes. UConn going from one season to what they had last season to a bowl. What a great job by Jim Mora. But you know what? It wasn't just Fresno. They upset Boston College as a 7-point dog. They upset Liberty as an 8-point dog. They're 5-2 straight up, 7-0 against the spread in their last 7 games. And you're going to give me 10.5 at Army? Army? Yep. I'm sorry, but I'm taking this and I'm running with it.
I'm with you too. I mean, if Kansas is the feel-good story in college football this year, UConn is. Terrific job by Jim L. Mora in this with this football program here. And they're hot. They're on a roll. Why would you want to step in front of them at this point? And it's not like you're stepping in front of them going into a juggernaut.
No.
You're not.
This is not one of Monken's best teams.
No, it's not. Not at all. And double digits, I think I'm with you. I think it's almost ludicrous. I think you have to play the points there.
Yeah, and look, if Army wins at UMass, and then they would take on Navy for bowl eligibility. So they got to win the last 3 games to be bowl eligible. And this is the one that really, kicks it all off. Okay, now we get into the AAC race, and Central Florida's win over Tulane last week was really crazy because they rushed for over 300, almost 400 yards on the ground. Quarterback went crazy on the ground. Tulane made a comeback, too short, so they can clinch home field with wins in their final 2, and they're hosting Navy. And then they're at South Florida. So, yes, it looks pretty good for Central Florida to clinch home field in the title game. But still got to take care of business. Now, Tulane or Cincinnati can clinch the title game by winning their last 2. Tulane's already taken care of business this week, and Tulane will play Cincinnati next week. Now, Cincinnati has got to take on Temple, the rough starts of Temple this week. But the bottom line is it looks like Tulane at Cincinnati next week, and the winner will take on Central Florida in the championship game.
There's those Owls again, those Temple Owls.
Watch out!
They keep popping up every week, whether we're talking about them or against them or their opponent. They're still being talked about. That's the most important thing.
Kurt Warner's little son.
Oh, really? Yeah?
Yeah.
That's his boy there.
He had, what did he have last week? His name is EJ. He had 486 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's not an NFL quarterback. Don't get me wrong. He's more of a, he's more of a precision quarterback, efficiency, that kind of thing. Little guy. So he ain't following his father's footsteps to the NFL, but yeah, that was very impressive what he's been able to do the last couple of weeks, including last week, and they almost pulled off the upset against Houston.
Well, he's got the genes, that's for sure. Unquestionably. Impressive. I didn't know that he was the quarterback. I'm going to look deeper into that.
Yeah.
What is he? Like a sophomore, maybe?
He is either first or second season. Yeah,
Okay.
and he's like, I don't even know if he was. I think he might have been a 2-star. So I don't even think he was a 3-star.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's like, again, you look at him and you go, okay. So he doesn't. You would think, Kurt Warner's son. Let me take a look at him. He's like this little guy, with no arm strength. But hey, he gets the job done with more experience, which is nice, and it's good to see. So those stories are kind of nice. But yeah, look, as far as those games, I don't think they're going to be easy games. So much so that I think that Temple game is ripe for an upset. We'll get back to that in a little bit. And Navy, Central Florida, I know you've been on top of Navy the last couple of weeks. They outgained Notre Dame last week.
Yep.
So why wouldn't that game be, an interesting... Now, look, Navy has come back the last 2 weeks to cover and make things close because they were beat up early in the first half of games, but they still made it close. And I could see this game being close, the Central Florida game. If you take a look at it, Central Florida, where do I have Central Florida's? I have it here somewhere. Central Florida, 3-10 against the spread at home versus losing teams. So,
Wow.
So that's not very good. That favors Navy.
Well, Navy's always going to give you 100%. You know that, and I think they're playing some of their better ball right now. They started out really slow to begin the football season. Central Florida made that big statement win last week. A bigger game next week here. I think this is a nice spot for Navy to go in there and drop anchor.
Oh, okay. 6-2 against the spread in their last 8. Navy is as well. And the East Carolina-Houston game matchup, there's no way I can touch that game. Both teams are bowl eligible. East Carolina has to have a hangover for being knocked out of the race, especially the way that they were knocked out. They had it right there. They was this close to upsetting Cincinnati, and they just couldn't get it done. So it's too bad, but that's what happened to East Carolina. It would have been nice to see. And who knows what happens if Keaton Mitchell stays in the game. I know East Carolina was very upset. They had rightly so, a targeting penalty on Cincinnati's defender. Basically just hammered Mitchell on an incomplete pass, knocked him out for the rest of the game. But it is what it is. Cincinnati held on to beat Temple. Held on to beat East Carolina in that one.
Well, you've got an East Carolina team that's playing some real good football here. I don't think the other guy is. I think the other guy's about to be exposed here.
Houston, yeah.
And if they continue to keep going south, it could be Dana Holgerson that's sitting on one of the hottest of hot seats here. It'd be a shame because the reason they hired him was to take him into the Big 12 conference where they're headed.
Yeah,
they might be headed there without Holgerson, so he needs to win to keep his job in place for sure.
All right. Anyway, by the way, I am taking Temple. I'm gonna put a couple of bucks on the money line, but yes, that did not surprise you or anybody that I'm taking Temple in the 17. So, by the way, Cincinnati 0-5 against the spread in their last 5.
Yeah, they're not playing good football right now. It doesn't matter how you want to shake it, cut it up, or whatnot. And we anticipated this at the beginning of the season because of the losses they had. Number one, the fact that they made the college football playoff. They're going to come down and play backwards again the next year. It was a 4-year starting quarterback in Desmond Ridder. He's gone. So they're sort of like
Gardner.
Yeah, Sauce Gardner. How about that? I mean, the best player on that team. Obviously, Rookie of the Year is going to be in the National Football League. So obviously, those things are taking a toll on this program here right now, and they're not anywhere close this year that they were last year. No.
And Temple, now get this, the last 4 games for Temple, they lose only by 11 to Tulsa. They lose in overtime to Navy on the road. They destroy South Florida and get their coach fired. And then they lose last week to Houston by 7, and they had to lead with under 2 minutes left. So Stan Drayton, he's been the running backs coach at Ohio State and Texas, over his last 7 years. And he's doing a phenomenal job because this is what it's about when you're rebuilding the program. There's a lot of other teams that are kind of like Houston. Okay, we're bowl eligible, blah, blah, blah. But then there's other teams with first-year coaches who are building something. And these games are important. And these teams are playing these games like it's the first game of the season because they know it's a long process. So that's why these teams at the end of the season are good to take when there's a lot of positivity going on and they feel like all the effort that they put in is working and they're believing in their coach. And even if they lose a heartbreaker, that's okay. We're going to come back and we're going to get Cincinnati next week. And that's why it's nice taking teams like that.
Well, they're not playing with pressure either. They're
No
playing
pressure.
with confidence is what they're playing with, and they can oftentimes be played down too. So that makes a real nice combination to take that big ugly dog. We call them buds, big ugly dogs. That they certainly fit that bill.
By the way, Tulane Cincinnati is on Friday. No, excuse me. That's not the Friday game. That's the Saturday game. It's the Central Florida game. That's South Florida. That's on Friday of next week. Mountain versus West, and the Mountain West is yet to be determined. But Fresno State can clinch the West with winning one of the last two. They're at Nevada on Saturday, so they'll take care of business on Saturday, and then they host Wyoming the week after that. Now, that could be interesting because in the Mountain, Boise State can clinch. If they win at Wyoming, they're a 14-point favorite in that one. But let's just say, because Wyoming's a game back, let's just say Wyoming wins and they're tied with Boise. If Fresno clinches this week, I wonder if they really care about what they do against Wyoming. They might just say, all right, we're just going to rest Jake Haener in the second half, or we're going to rest him entirely because he was banged up and we don't want anything to happen to him, and we're going to get him ready for the Mountain West Championship game. Especially if they say to themselves, well, wouldn't we rather play Wyoming?
Yeah, we want to play you, Wyoming.
Yeah, we want to play you, so we're not going to play Jake Haener this week.
Right.
So, yeah. But Wyoming's still got to beat Boise State, which is not going to be easy, but it's going to be cold. No snow. I'm kind of disappointed in that. But it's going to be cold and windy on Saturday night in Wyoming.
Oh. Well, you're talking about a second-place team that's got a lot to play for, taking a ton of points at home. So, I think Boise's a lot of name and reputation here, especially since Haener's come back. I think this is a pretty nice spot for Wyoming to at least keep this game close.
Yeah. So Boise right now, they've won 5 out of the last 6. Okay. And the only loss was to BYU outside the conference. They've beaten Wyoming 15 out of 16. So they've dominated the series. But Wyoming this year, they've won 4 straight games. And in this spot as a home dog this year, they've won both games. They beat Tulsa and they beat Air Force. So it's not like they've just beaten crappy teams and here we are. We're a bad resume. I know it's not a very talented team compared to Boise, but Craig Ball has done just such a remarkable job with this program. He gets no credit outside of Laramie, probably, or outside the Mountain West, but he's done an incredible job there. Remember, this is Josh Allen's school. He recruited Josh Allen to play for Wyoming, so he's doing something right there.
When he was hired, it was bandied about that. That was one of the best hires that were made, Craig Bowl. That Wyoming got a real keeper there, and I'm kind of surprised they've kept him. I really am. It's not like Wyoming's tore things up there, but their football program is at least it's competitive, and they're in the bowl hunt almost every year. I like Craig Bowl real well. I love to see him get a job and move on to a Power 5 level, perhaps sooner than later.
Yeah, but like you said, I don't know, just doesn't. He's not like that when you look at him. He doesn't seem to be that sexy hire.
No,
and that's why if he's going to get one of those jobs, it might have to be like I don't know, like a team that plays poorly like Northwestern or Georgia Tech or something.
Like a Georgia Tech, right?
Yeah. Can you believe there are actually people in Northwestern fans that believe that Pat Fitzgerald should possibly leave just because of what's happened the last 2 years there?
It's unbelievable how short memories are. I mean,
Pat Fitzgerald,
yeah,
who could have in the last several years, he could have been the head coach of the Packers. He could have been the head coach of the Bears, but he's got the allegiance to his school and his university that's kept him there. All power. I hope this is the sign that he needs. That even if they say, "Oh, yeah, of course you're coming back. We're not getting rid of you," that he just says to himself, "All right, maybe if they still want me in the NFL, maybe I should go."
Well, you might end up seeing something like that. It's uh, as an assistant coach in the National Football League, which would be harder, more difficult, more taxing, coaching or being a head coach at a college football team and having to recruit, or being an assistant on an NFL football program where you're just assigned a certain group of people and
It would
work
be
with
a
them?
good spot for him. Maybe now Indianapolis.
Might be.
Yeah, that's his kind of part of the country, and see, that's the thing. You take a look at some of the head coaches or some of the guys that are given coaching jobs in the NFL. I mean, I just think Pat Fitzgerald, when his career is over in 10 years, 15 years, whenever it is, I just see NFL head coach in there. I just do. I can't see him running his entire rest of his coaching career being the head coach of Northwestern. I just, sooner or later, you got to say, hey, okay, I've done my part for my university. Now it's time to move on to the NFL. So,
It would have sure been nice to see him continue the winning ways the past 2
before
years.
it happened, yeah.
Exactly right. Because he could inch closer and closer to that right now, rather than have to relay or rework the whole program again.
I really like the game tonight, by the way. San Diego. So I don't know why the line's only 14. San Diego State and New Mexico. New Mexico has lost 7 straight games, 1 in 6 ATS less 7 by 220 to 65. This is not the same San Diego State offense from the beginning of the year. They have found a competent quarterback now that helps them put points on the board, and they have a really good defense. So I'm kind of surprised by this. Plus, statistically, they're still in the race. They still need to win games just in case Fresno State gets upset on Saturday.
This is a pathetic New Mexico football team. I mean, the number is cheap in the sense that, as you mentioned here, a good point that San Diego State's a completely different team. We talked a little about like Minnesota the first half of the season, the second half of the football season as well. But their offense is dead last in FBS this year in New Mexico. Their over-under on points in this football game is probably 6. Okay, so you think San Diego State will get 24 points in the game?
Yeah.
I think so, too.
I think so, yeah. Okay, Sun Belt Conference, Coastal Carolina. Hopefully they're going to get Grayson McCall back for the championship game. They're set there. They're taking on the West champ. South Alabama, Troy are both 5-1 in the West. Troy owns the tiebreaker because they beat South Alabama. Troy will be hosting Louisiana Monroe and then at Arkansas State to end their season. South Alabama is at Southern Mississippi, and then they host Old Dominion. So there's still football to be played. Now, I'm just going to throw it out there and start talking about one of my 2 upsets, and this is it. And I know we haven't talked about them at all, and I get it, but I think it's now time that we need, and maybe it happens if they pull off the upset, but it's time to give Terry Bowden his due, isn't it? He's done an incredible job with this team in the last 2 seasons. He took over a team that was 0-10.
Right, from the dead, right.
Yes. They won 4 games last year. They've already won 4 games this year. Last year, they upset Liberty as a 32-point dog, came right back the next game and upset South Alabama as a 13-point dog. This year, they've lost by 7 at South Alabama, 7 at home against Coastal Carolina. They beat Louisiana Lafayette at home, and they upset Troy last year, the team they're playing this week, as a 23-point dog. So, yes, I've already given it away. This is one of my 2 upset plays of the week. I'm getting, 14 on the spread, but overall the money line is 5-1. So I am taking Terry Bowden and Louisiana Monroe. By the way, if they win the game, they will have bowl eligibility if they beat Southern Miss in the final game of the season, and wouldn't that be miraculous if he could pull that off?
That would be terrific. One of the most Rodney Dangerfield type teams in all of the FBS this year, ULM. They don't get any respect at all, and like you say, they keep knocking off a team or 2 in total surprise. And if you make your money line play on this football game, cash a real nice ticket here as well. I can completely agree with what it is you're doing.
The other game I like also as an upset is Georgia Southern against Marshall. Reason being, Marshall became bowl eligible with their win last week. They cannot catch Coastal Carolina, so they're basically playing for nothing. Georgia Southern needs to win 1 game in their next 2 for bowl eligibility. They've already upset Nebraska and James Madison this year. They're getting plus 170 on the money line. I think they'll pull off a 3rd upset and upset Marshall.
Well, they could do that. Marshall's prime, to be beat this week in a letdown type bowl. But I also think Marshall's a really good football team that doesn't get a lot of credit.
Sure.
But this is a bad spot, though. I mean, there's good spots and there's bad spots. This is not a good spot, especially to a hungry team that still has visions of becoming bowl eligible. So I would not disagree.
Conference USA, UTSA is already in the championship game. They need to beat Rice this week to become the home team in the championship game. And I'm not making this a pick because I just think this is just too high for Rice of a steps to climb to upset this week. I think North Texas next week is a more reasonable shot, and I think they'll probably be also getting 4-1. So I'll probably take Rice next week because I've said it. I just think that Rice might be able to just pull off one more upset this year for that bowl eligibility. But UTSA is just so good; they've won 7 straight. And Rice, here's one that's interesting that works in their favor if you want to take the spread from the Playbook magazine. In the 6 games before playing UTEP, Texas San Antonio's opponent next week, they're 1-5 against the spread. In Rice's last 10 games before playing North Texas, they've covered all 10. So if you combine the two, it says take Rice and the 13. So I can see Rice covering the game, but asking him to beat UTSA is just probably asking for too much.
Yeah, you're going out on a plank off of a pirate ship to take them on a money line. But I think they can cover this number here. This is a time of the year. It's really, really good to make cases for teams that have bowl eligibility, especially against teams that are
playing for nothing,
or prone to a letdown, right? Because they just did something good or they got nothing to gain from it. Okay, and Rice checks that box.
By the way, Rice beat UAB at home and only lost by 7 at Houston. So it's not like they're a team that can't rise to the occasion. They just cannot turn the ball over. That's been their problem in games like this, is they just turn the ball over too much and make it easy for the opponent. Also, Western Kentucky can clinch. Actually, if you look at it, Western Kentucky and FAU are still alive to take on UTSA. So is North Texas. Now, North Texas doesn't play this week, but they play, as I said, Rice next week. So if North Texas beats Rice next week, North Texas will play UTSA in the championship game at UTSA, all done. If Rice upsets North Texas, then it goes to Western Kentucky or FAU. Both of those teams will be playing each other next week. And the game this week means nothing to Western Kentucky because it's an outer conference game. So FAU needs to maintain their eligibility by beating Middle Tennessee this week, which I think they will, and I think they'll cover too. I'm taking them. So the bottom line is FAU can clinch with wins in their final 2 with a loss by North Texas, and Western Kentucky can clinch with a win at FAU and a loss by North Texas. So there's still games to be played by those 3 teams I mentioned, and Rice make it 4, but a lot of it depends on 2 upsets. And it both involves Rice, whether or not Rice can upset Texas San Antonio or whether or not they can upset North Texas, not just for themselves, but for the other teams that are trying to face Texas San Antonio in the championship game.
Well, I like seeing all this. There's a lot of possibilities at the end of the football season. When you have all those scenarios going here, like we're saying, you're looking for extreme opposites, ends of the ladder, teams with reasons to play, teams not with reasons to play. And you get all those particular situations here. I think FAU makes a lot of sense.
And then my final upset, because there's 2 of them, and you'll have to make a decision on which one of these 2 you're going to go with. So you already know the first one, so we're going to give the second one. And you're probably shaking your head and going, "Didn't you do this last week?" And it didn't work out in your favor, and that was South Florida.
Yeah.
But I have a reason.
Okay.
And that is that when I mentioned the whole idea about losing your head coach and you step up and it's chronicled and it's worked, well, it worked for a half. And in the second half, SMU was too good. But first of all, the fact that they actually played hard. So that's a good point. And now what's more important is they're playing a team that is completely lifeless right now. SMU's not lifeless. SMU was a tough game. We talked about it. It was not going to be easy. This is what I wish this game was last week. Then I would have been really all over it. But even in this circumstance, Tulsa is 1-6 in their last 7. Their only win beating Temple, by the way. 0-6 against the spread in their last 6. And I just wonder whether or not And I've taken advantage of this several times already this season myself, whether or not this is one of those games that could get a coach fired. Because Philip Montgomery has been there a while. It just looks like it's a stale situation when you're in this long losing streak. And I just think that maybe this is it. Maybe this is where South Florida waits one extra week and then gets it done.
Well, it's hard. I like your reasoning. I like your logic, and every week there's reasoning and logic behind them.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's going to work, but
no, but it's nice going forward. So it's nice that you did your homework and you're ready to make the plunge.
That's it. And by the way, the other thing that helps when you have a losing streak like that, it also means that Tulsa cannot go bowling. So they are playing for nothing. So 0.
Yep, that's nice when you got that hungry team to a team with no incentive. Which is
South Florida has no wins this season against FBS teams, so they have something to play for.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah. All right, let's talk NFL. Before we do that, we're going to take a quick timeout. I have my fantasy segment with DraftSharks.com analyst Jared Smola. We had a nice discussion. We talked general NFL, so it's not all fantasy talk, and a lot of key updates on injuries, quarterbacks, receivers, and such. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be back right after that in just a jiffy. All right, Jared, so let's talk a little fantasy football. Most importantly, let's talk about injuries and such, because there's a lot of that going around. Week 11 in the NFL. But tell you what, before we talk injuries, I have to ask you about, because to me, it's almost like, is Justin Fields, is he this season's version of Jalen Hurts? Meaning, and maybe even I'll be better so because he's a first round pick. There was still a lot of skepticism. Oh, he's a second round guy, Hurts. Mm-hmm. So that's not going to last. But he's proven that to be the case. Fields, he's running around more, obviously, than Hurts. He's yet to show us that he can do more than that. Do you think when we talk next season about regular fantasy drafts or even someone starting a dynasty league next year, that they need to look at Fields as like a top 5 quarterback?
I think he's in that discussion, like in that tier. Like to me, Josh Allen's still the best fantasy quarterback because he gives you the elite combination of passing numbers and rushing numbers.
Yeah, we're not putting Justin. We're not doing that. No.
But I mean, I think Fields is with Mahomes and Hurts and Lamar Jackson in that next tier, because we obviously see what he's doing with his legs, and I think you could argue he's the best running quarterback in the NFL right now and going forward. And the passing stuff, like it's been better over the past month. You know, it's his second year; he's still improving. He's doing it behind a crappy O-line with a crappy group of pass catchers. Like they added Chase Claypool. He's barely done anything. It's Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet. Like his weaponry is gonna be better next year, which is gonna help the passing production.
Yeah, the one thing that will give us an indication of how good he really is, because we can look at it and say, well, that's the reason, or that could almost be like his shield of, yeah, you don't. Maybe it's better off. I don't have. Not that that's what he's thinking, but yeah. Maybe because once I get those guys, you'll see I'm really not that great a passer after all. We don't know, so we'll find out. But because one of the things I notice especially when you run around as often as he's been running around lately, is I think he tends. It's now like he's almost playing me ball. Like I'm going to do everything, and I'll let you guys know if I need you. Seriously, like, all right, I'm going to run, and if I can run and find, I'm going. And if not, I can't run. All right, is somebody open? Okay, I'll throw it. That's what I'm getting from him, which is why I think that when you're getting down to crunch time, it's just not working, and especially against the teams he's playing. But I think there's still optimism that he can become a very good player. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that there's still some work to be done.
Well, he is their best offensive weapon, so I'm not really opposed to the knee ball stuff. Yeah. Like, again, the O-line there and the pass catching core, like they're not going to have a super productive passing game. So I don't mind the rushing. I mean, it has been a confluence of factors that have led to the massive fantasy numbers. one, he's had an awesome schedule. I mean, Lions 2 weeks ago, he gets the Falcons this week, another good matchup. Even Miami a couple weeks ago is a good matchup for quarterbacks. But then two, the Bears have tailored their offense to Fields' skill set. They're calling more design runs. They're letting him run more, which they should have been doing all along. It took them half the season to figure it out.
Yeah,
but,
the way
at least
Daniel
they
Jones
did.
is being used. Like, look,
Exactly.
Justin Fields is not C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud's a passer. Fields, he has to run. He's got to be a part of the running game, and you're going to have to live and die with that. And if he gets hurt, he gets hurt. Nothing you can do about it. You can't shield him because that's what makes him a great player.
For sure.
Yeah.
He's a big dude, too. So
that's true.
He's dishing out as much punishment as he's taking.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there's still I mean, but do you grade him right now going into next year? Right now, I know it's early, but would you grade him right now higher than Jalen Hurts?
No, I'd take Hurts right now because his supporting cast.
So you want to see who Fields' supporting cast will be before next season?
Yeah, the Bears have draft picks and they have cap space to spend. So we'll see how well they spend it.
I also think it may not be a coincidence, though, that his numbers in the ground game have really taken off the last couple of weeks since. Now, you can say it's the competition, I agree, since the trade. Because now you have a legitimate, decent receiver, Claypool, out there with, with the other supporting cast. And by the way, what about Cole Kmet?
Yeah, he's not going to score 2 touchdowns every week. But his target share has climbed over the past few weeks, so they're looking to get him the ball more. So the Bears in general, they get Atlanta this week, another awesome matchup. Then they go Jets, Packers, bye week, Eagles, Bills.
Oh, it gets a lot more.
It's about to get super tough. So Kmet especially is a sell high candidate if you can get something in return for him. Even Justin Fields, I'd be careful. I'd probably only trade him away if I had another, top 7 or 8 quarterback, which a lot of teams do. I mean, a lot of teams might have taken, Jalen Hurts and then had Fields as a backup. If you're in that situation, I would look into selling high on Fields right now, see what you can get for him.
All right. Now, let's run through these injuries. I tell you what, let's start with the Chargers. We'll start with the West because there's a couple of teams dealing with wide receiver injuries. Actually, both Wests, but we'll start with the AFC. The Chargers, I know based on Draft Shark's news reports, limited practice for Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. That's still a good thing. At least they're practicing better than before. So are we looking at still no 50-50?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The tough part about this for fantasy this week is that it's a Sunday night game.
Yeah.
So if Staley comes out on Friday and says game time decision and we don't get an update on Sunday morning, it's going to be tough. Keenan Allen, I would keep on benches this week, even if he plays. The last time he tried to come back, he didn't make it through the game. He did nothing. He killed you.
Okay.
Williams, if it's looking like Williams is going to play, I think he's someone you probably want to get back in the fantasy lineup. Should be a yeah.
Okay. So even if it's game time decision, Mike Williams, you'll take a chance.
Well, yeah, that's where, again, you have to decide who your other options are. Ideally, you can roster someone else from either that game or their Monday night game to have a backup plan. But I do think Williams, if he plays, he's a pretty solid fantasy play.
All right. The Chiefs, now they have their top 3 receivers aren't practicing. And they're playing in the same game. So what's going on here?
Yeah, Marquez Valdes-Scantling missed practice on Wednesday with an illness. He should be fine. Juju Smith-Schuster had a concussion last week. That's his 4th documented concussion. So I'm betting on him not playing on Sunday night. And then McCole Hardman missed last week's game with the abdomen injury. He's also dealing with an illness now too. So we'll see on Hardman. I mean, the guy here is Kadarius Toney, right? We saw his role climb from his Chiefs debut a couple weeks ago to last week. And when he's on the field, they're looking to get him the ball. He looks really good, which he has when he's been healthy. So we'll see. As long as one of those wide receivers is out, Juju, MVS, or Hardman, I think Kadarius Toney is startable this week.
Okay. But Juju's definitely the one that shouldn't play.
Yeah, he seems least likely to play among these 3.
Okay. All right. Now, in the NFC West, one of your top players on your team, Cooper Kupp, injured. The escaped injury a few weeks ago. Not so much last week. Was it the same injury?
Same ankle.
Same ankle.
Same ankle. Basically, just I think a more severe high ankle sprain than he had when he originally hurt it.
So basically,
underwent
even though Sean McVay was like, "Oh, we escaped something a few weeks ago," they really didn't, because this basically came back to haunt him a couple of weeks later.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the original injury had anything to do with this. Freaking John Walford overthrows Cup on a wide open pass. He goes up to try to snare it, and as he's coming down, a defender just lands right on his ankle.
That happens.
So, tough break. He had to go under surgery. He underwent that tightrope surgery that Tua had on his ankle back in Alabama. I've read it's usually 6 to 8 weeks after that procedure.
Really?
Yeah. So
he could be done for the season.
Yeah, and the Rams season is over, so I don't know why they'd rush him back.
Yeah. All right, so what does that do about the Rams receivers then?
Yeah. The offense is going to be so bad. It was bad with Cooper Kupp, and that was the only thing working in the offense. So, I mean, you're going to get more targets for Allen Robinson and Tyler Higbee and, Van Jefferson farther down the line, but I'm not super excited about any of those guys. I just think the offense is just not going to be able to do anything.
All right. Yeah, well, just shows you it ain't easy after you win a Super Bowl. Unless you're like the Patriots or the Chiefs, or you have to have that like really stable, coaching foundation, for years to be able to come back from a Super Bowl win or loss. And if you don't, I don't care. Sean McVay's a nice coach, but they don't have a foundation. Stafford just got there, and he just went. So it's not like he's been there for 8 years, and we'll just keep going next year. So it happens.
We knew this was going to happen to the Rams because they sold out for that title, right? I mean, they traded draft picks, they signed these guys to huge contracts, and they're kind of paying the price now. But I don't know, it's probably worth it if you
win a Super Bowl. Yeah, it's worth it.
It sucked for the 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, it all depends. I mean, I still think the best way of going about doing it is, let's see if we can be a contender for 7 years, win a couple of Super Bowls. That's the better way. But I'm not going to argue with anybody who does it this way and then you win the Super Bowl. Go ahead and take it. Okay, so by the way, Stafford, he's not coming back yet?
He should be back. He was a full go in practice on Wednesday. Okay. So I don't think he's totally cleared yet, but he's definitely trending towards returning.
So then you would look at someone like Jefferson, who could be available if you need a receiver only. But
yeah, he should probably be rostered in leagues of like 12 plus teams, but I would not feel good about
it. Would be one
him.
of those, okay, I have to start him kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay. Paris Campbell, nice pickup this week because Matt Ryan's back.
Yeah. He's been awesome in 3 straight games with Matt Ryan. You kind of forgot about it because Campbell was bad in Ellinger's 2 starts, but Campbell was awesome in the 2 previous games with Matt Ryan. He gets the Eagles this weekend too. It's a tough matchup. I don't think the Colts offense is going to do a lot, but the place to attack the Eagles secondary is in the slot, which is where Campbell plays. So I think it should be another busy game for him.
And speaking of the Eagles, Dallas Goedert injured, out now for a month?
Yeah, he was placed on IR, so he's out for at least the next 4 games. We don't have a timeline for him beyond that. I'm not sure if he's going to be back in 5 weeks or not. That's a big loss for the Eagles offense. He was having an awesome season. Goddard was.
Jerry Jeudy?
Jeudy did not practice. So the report is his ankle injury isn't serious, but he did not practice on Wednesday. So at this point, it looks like he's trending towards missing at least Sunday's game against the Raiders.
He's getting hurt too much.
We'll see. Yeah, he's had trouble staying healthy.
Yeah, not good. Okay. Chase is still out.
Chase was still on crutches.
Yeah, what's up with that? I mean, how the hell? Why wasn't he placed on IR?
I don't know. The report from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler said they're hoping he's back for week 12.
That's next week.
So that seems like the best case scenario. But again, he's on crutches on Monday. I don't know. We'll see.
It's killing my team. It's just killing it. Having him and Marquise Brown out. Hey, at least, what's his name from Purdue is
Rondell Moore.
He's getting a lot of time. See, he's doing exactly what Marquise Brown is doing without the touchdowns.
Yeah. So Brown was designated to return earlier this week, and it sounds like he has a chance to come back for Monday night's game. So we'll have to see on that. Yep.
Oh, all right. Oh, but it's Monday night, of course. Figures.
That makes it tough. Yeah.
I can't start him. I can't wait. All right. Well, at least hopefully he plays. I'll get him next week. Gerald Everett, though. We just talked about the 2 receivers maybe coming back. Everett's out, right?
Well, he was also limited
Oh, he
in
was,
Wednesday's
so he
practice.
could play.
So, he could play. But again, the late start could make that a tough spot for fantasy owners.
All right. Oh, by the way, before I let you go, I'm going to make this official with Khalil Herbert. I know he got hurt. Of course, I kept Khalil Herbert just waiting. Oh, maybe Montgomery gets hurt, and then it's Herbert that gets hurt. I'm just going to say this, all right? And I know it's going to come true as long as the injury doesn't affect him. I don't think it will long term. I think Khalil Herbert is going to be a huge running back in this league. I just really do. As soon as he gets a chance. As soon as someone gives him the chance to be a full-time running back, he's going to be a top 10 guaranteed. You want him on your team. I don't know what the Bears are thinking. I don't know why they didn't trade him. Maybe they didn't get the right offer. Maybe they think they're going to lose Montgomery in the offseason. I don't know what the situation is, but he deserves it, and I just hope it's either with Chicago or another team.
So Montgomery's a free agent after this year, right? And I'm with you that Herbert's awesome. My only concern is that he was a 6th-round pick, and we see it all the time with these running backs. If a team doesn't invest a lot in them, they're easy to just kind of replace them.
That's why I'd rather him go somewhere else. Yeah, I would.
Yeah, so because we'll see. I mean, the Bears have bigger needs. They should not be spending assets on running back this offseason. They should just roll with Herbert.
That's right.
But we'll see if they actually do it.
All right, Jared. What's next for you guys, the Draft Sharks? Did you do a show today?
Yes, we did our preview show Wednesday night, actually. So that's up on the YouTube channel if you want to check that out. We'll have our DFS show on Friday. We posted our last buy, sell, hold report of the season early this week. So, that's some guys to trade for, some to consider trading away, a couple guys to just hang on to. So definitely check that out.
Jared, appreciate it. Thanks for stepping in for Matt again. Now he owes you.
Yeah, slacker, Matt. Yeah, he owes
He's
me.
not playing golf. I know that.
No, he's not a golfer. He doesn't get it.
By the way, this show is going to be posted on Friday, so just everybody knows we're talking on Thursday. We'll get back to our show, and we'll be back talking more Draft Sharks fantasy football next week. So thanks, Jared, and back to the show. All right, so we're back. We have NFL to go over here over the next 10 or 15 minutes, so let's go ahead and do that. Since we're doing it on a Friday, we get an opportunity to talk about that one-week wonder, the Green Bay Packers, because they pull off the upset, which you liked last week, and then they did not carry through against your favorite team, the Tennessee Titans. So the Titans just keep doing it. I know they're doing it with mirrors, but did they out-yardage Green Bay last night?
Yes, they did. They out-yarded them pretty good, well over 100 yards. So that was a well-earned and deserved victory by Tennessee, which puts a red flag up there for Green Bay for sure.
Yeah, they're done now, it looks like. Unless maybe the Giants lose to Detroit, which could happen. I think it's over. Even mathematically, they had a shot if they had beaten Tennessee, but I don't see any way that they're going to be able to hit the playoffs now. Okay, now, as far as, you know what? We don't do it often, but maybe this is perfect time to do it, and that's lead off our NFL talk by talking about my New York Jets. So the Jets are at New England. New England's a 3.5-point favorite. It's nice when your team is starting to now get credit around the league when you haven't really earned it for the past, 12 years or so. You feel real excited about and feel good about everything that I have preached since Joe Douglas was hired to be the general manager, and since Saleh was hired to be the head coach. I've been backing these guys 100%, even through the losing. Everybody knows that, and so now it's starting to work. They've won 5 out of the last 6, but that loss was to New England. They've lost 13 straight to New England. It's basically a win and you're going to cover scenario. But you never know. It's 3, so it could happen. But still, look, I'm taking the Patriots. And until Zach Wilson can play a Bill Belichick game and not either feel something weird inside of him that I can't beat, this guy's got my number, or maybe it's just he's young and inexperienced, and it just happened to be the week that he was playing the Patriots that he just went too far. This is that game to prove that. And I need to see proof as a Jet fan that Zach Wilson is not going to throw the game away against Bill Belichick, and that when the time comes and they don't get a pick 6 that puts them up 2 scores and some bozo commits a roughing penalty that brings the touchdown back and changes the entire complexion of the game. So until the Jets can stop doing dumb things and their quarterback just doesn't give the game away, I have to take the Patriots in this spot.
Well, I can see with history for sure, and 13 losses in a row, short number for the success the Jets have had this football season. And one of the reasons for that success has been the fact that they have not lost a road game this year.
Yeah, crazy,
up,
huh?
Yeah, 4-0 straight up and to the number, doing really, really rather well. Robert Sala's done a really, really nice job with this football team. He's really terrific against teams that come off of a winning cover. He's 6-1 to the spread with the Jets in this particular role. And if there's an Achilles heel for New England, it's been the fact that they've not played well off bye weeks, especially against opponents coming off a win. Just 2-7-1 to the spread the last 10. I'm going to take the Jets in this football game because my midweek alert newsletter reminds me that the New York Jets own the better offense and the better defense in this football game. So I think this prices a lot more here on name and reputation for New England than it is the way that New York Jets are actually playing this year. So I'm going to give the Jets their due and take them plus the points.
All right. We'll see. And I think if this happens, I think this is like the last opponent since they beat Buffalo and they beat Miami. This is like their last wall they got to kind of break that says, yes, we are for real. That, yes, we're going to the playoffs, barring injuries. This is just the beginning. And because if they lose, they could, just like that, they lose this game, and all of a sudden they go from being first place to like fourth place. That's how tight the division is. So, all right. Let's also talk about, I tell you what, let's talk about my top pick of the week. Because it's, now that I'm finally giving respect to Washington, they're probably going to lose. But look, I picked them last week. I shouldn't say that. I said that last week. They were one of my top picks. And I also said, I was thinking of taking them on the money line, but, I cowered it out. So I can't get that this week. But what I can do is bump it up from a 3-star to a 5-star, which is what I'm going to do. They've won 4 out of 5. They've covered 5 straight. And Houston is just from the Playbook magazine. They're 1-8 straight up, 0-7-2 against the spread all time versus 500 or less winning percentage NFC East opponents. I like Washington. I just think that they're playing so well confidence-wise that this isn't the type of team you lose to when you're playing with so much confidence and you look at the standings and realize you're in last place. So it's not like they can sit there and go, we're playing Houston. We could just lose this week. We'll be okay. No, you lose this week. You're back to being under 500, and you're in a tough situation to go to the playoffs. So I think there's still a lot to play for, and I'd be shocked if they play down to the level of the competition this week.
Well, Ron Rivera will certainly remind this football team, as you mentioned, that last week's win meant nothing if they don't get this win here. Meant absolutely nothing because the progress is stopped. The forward progress stops right here if they don't win this football game. And Rivera's been really, really good in his career when he's pulled the upset the game before. 25-8-1 to the spread. That's a pretty nice number. That the role that he'll be in this particular situation, and he's beating a bad football team. Lovie Smith, you take a look at him. 3-16-1 straight up, 7-13 to the spread his last 2 games in his recent stints with both Houston and Tampa Bay when he's taking on a team that's coming off of a win. I'm with you with Washington in this game. I think they're the better football team. They got a lot more to play for. I think Houston can go right through the motions in this contest here. I don't think there's any letdown at all for the Commanders in this contest.
Were you surprised at all by the line being just 3?
A little bit, but
I thought it was going to be like around 4.5, 5.
Well, I think what they factor in here is the fact that they're coming off of Philadelphia.
Okay.
And you're still talking about Washington going out a road favorite.
Yeah.
So I think everything put into the mix was that. But I think at this number here, it's a playable number.
Okay. Then the Giants in Detroit. I mentioned that I think this is a losable game for the Giants. So much so, I'm taking Detroit. I know it's going to be hard to believe Detroit winning 3 straight, but I also thought, and we talked about it, that the talk. And I get it why there was that after there was so much momentum, and then they had that just where did that blowout loss in New England come from kind of deal, and then that kind of hung with them for a few more weeks, and it was like, but look at the schedule, all that good stuff that was happening, even though there were losses, that's still losses. It's the same old Detroit. I didn't buy that. They were still banged up. The running back was banged up. The receivers were banged up. It wasn't fair. And I'm glad to see that they're now, remember we just talked about it, like Temple. These are rebuilding teams. They're not giving up on their coach. They're still going out and they're fighting and they're trying to win. They're trying to get better. And I just look at the Giants. Look, they are going to play Dallas on the road on Thanksgiving. You talk about a look ahead. I mean, this has got look ahead written all over it. So I think this is going to be a very close game. It's going to come down to the wire. Giants, I can see the winning team pulling off a close game. It usually is the case. But something just tells me that when the Giants have the record that they have, and I just don't think they're as talented as to have the record they have, that sooner or later they're going to drop a few games like this.
Well, they're the type of team, Greg, that cast themselves into a role that they can't handle, sort of a Peter Principle type football team. And this could well be that case. The excellent point you make is that they do have Dallas on Thanksgiving up next. That could well be a look-ahead spot here. In Detroit, Dan Campbell going to roll with the mow here in this particular contest with this rotten defense. I mean, horrible to the rush. They allow 161 yards to the game on the ground. That's not good at all.
Oh, against a team that wants to run the football.
And Barkley, exactly right. So you know what the game plan should be for the New York Giants in this contest here. But you got a Detroit team that's been outgained 6 straight games in a row. If they get out-yarded here, are they going to get the money? That's the question. And when a bad defense gets out-yarded, it's kind of difficult to cash a ticket. I'm staying completely neutral to the game. I can understand your point, but I have reservations about Detroit still myself. And they've also got a Thanksgiving Day game coming up next as well.
Sure.
Yes.
And that's going to be a whole interesting scenario because Buffalo is going to be in Detroit now.
Yes.
And I'm guessing that they're not leaving. So they're staying. Yeah.
Right.
So that's an interesting kind of deal there. And as far as that game is concerned, I've been waiting all week to talk to you about this one, Mr. Cleveland Brown fan. Holy badness. The expletives could be a lot more, but then I'd have to change the rating on this show.
It was pathetic.
If I'm a fan, I'm furious. Absolutely furious that you can come off the Cincinnati game, go into a bye, get healthy, come back off of that bye,
Take
and lay
lead in the game.
Yes, and lay this egg in this type of game that meant their entire season. It's just, and I know they're not getting rid of Stefanski, but it's like, I don't know what this says other than because you can't blame everything when you lose a game like this on the quarterback.
No, you can't. And Josh Allen is not obviously playing his best football right now as he's played all season long. So, there's that factor. And you got the neutral field factor here. The site is actually closer to Cleveland than it is Buffalo.
Yeah.
Cleveland's only like an hour and a half drive.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is tough playing in Buffalo. That is a legitimate home field advantage.
For sure. I would have loved to have seen a snow bowl up there. Just get some of that good old fashioned football where you don't even know what yard line they're on.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't let us have that.
No.
I don't know what to make of the Cleveland Browns right now. I'm absolutely perplexed that it unraveled in the way it did. That was a football game, as you mentioned. They should have stepped up. I liked them real well last week, and they didn't. I felt really good when they were up 7-0 in the contest. The defense completely disappeared in the game. And, Nick Chubb got his yards, but they didn't matter. I mean, he broke off one big run in the fourth quarter when it didn't matter. They were never really in the football game after the first quarter, and it's a sad state of affairs. And now when Deshaun Watson comes back, the question is, will it even matter?
Not if they lose the next 2 weeks, which they probably will.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's the point. Is that you would think, hey guys, come on, man, look what's ahead of us, and our quarterback's coming back in a couple of weeks, and then you play like that. Just I don't know. That says something about the locker room, and I don't know what it says. The leaders of that locker room have got now maybe, and we've seen this a lot in the NFL. Is just when you kind of want to put the fork in some teams, that's when they rise to the occasion.
It is. And
that's why it's very tough to handicap.
if you like Cleveland here, you probably would have liked them better at Buffalo taking close to double digits than you do closer to a touchdown here right now.
Yeah, 8's not a lot when you're talking about Buffalo.
No, but Buffalo, they win games by more yards than any team in the league. It's 104 yards a game. I think the second closest is San Francisco. It's like 79 yards a game. So the Browns are going to get out-yarded in this contest here. If they're out-yarded, it makes a difficult case to make a backing for them, especially wondering if they're still shell-shocked after last week's game.
Philly and Indianapolis. Philly loses their first game. They're a 7-point favorite in this one. Sirianni returns to the scene of a crime, which is now definitely that case, even though Indianapolis got the win last week with Matt Ryan becoming the quarterback again. See, that's why this whole situation is just, we don't really know, and maybe we won't until the season's over when we find out what's going on, but because the whole thing with the contract with Matt Ryan, shouldn't that be a front office kind of deal? Like, why would Frank Reich care about contracts? And because he shouldn't. And then he's playing the young guy, and the young guy is obviously in over his head, and he plays him anyway. And then as soon as he gets fired, they put the guy with the contract back in, and then he win a game. I don't know what to make about what's going on in Indianapolis, but what I do know is Philadelphia is clearly a better football team. Philadelphia is not the Las Vegas Raiders, the way they're playing this season. And following their first loss of the season, I expect Philadelphia to take it out on the Colts.
Well, they probably will, and they're expected to. The line says that. My main concern here is look inside what's happening with Philadelphia here right now. And we called this out in the newsletter here. They lost Jordan Davis. He went down to a high ankle sprain in week number 8. At the time he went down, the Eagles were allowing 110 rushing yards a game. Since he's been gone, they're allowing 155 rushing yards a game. That's
impact player, huh?
A very impact player. Okay, so all of a sudden that can be attacked or that can be exposed.
Especially when you got Jonathan Taylor running the football.
Exactly. So you know what the Colts should be doing in this football contest here. You've also got the Colts also, surprisingly, 9-1 to the spread when they take on an 850 or better opponent with a high win percentage opponent here. So, there's numbers and trends to the Colts in this football contest. I know everybody's going to want to knee-jerk to Philadelphia here, but I've seen it so many times when that great streak to begin a football season snaps, so too do they in the next game as well.
You're absolutely 100% right about that. And we can definitely see that happening. I wonder if this isn't the perfect opponent, though, because, again, last week, maybe they couldn't have played a better team under this situation than the Colts were playing Las Vegas, because there may not be a more fragile, psychotic team than the Raiders right now, and it proved it last week. But the Eagles are different, and even though they lost, and I can see what you're saying, I just wonder if, Jeff Saturday is still their head coach, and they got who would call in plays, and that could work maybe against the Raiders for 1 week, but is that going to work 2 weeks in a row, stepping up and playing a really good football team?
That's the big question.
Yeah, that's why I'm taking the Eagles, but I see exactly what you're saying, because I've definitely gone against that scenario before myself. By the way, I just wanted to mention this with Baltimore and their game against Carolina. Baltimore's schedule, not sure if you know this, Jacksonville, Denver, 2 games with Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Atlanta, and their final game of the season is their toughest one at Cincinnati. That is not a tough schedule.
That's Cupcake City, yes.
So you would think that schedule alone should give them the AFC North. Even before they play that final game at Cincinnati, they probably should be a 2-game lead by then with that schedule before they play the Bengals.
I don't know what the odds are to win the AFC North, but it might be worth looking into at Baltimore right now because the record's only going to get better from here on out.
Yep, absolutely.
Right.
Cooper Kupp, he's injured. Matthew Stafford may come back. Who knows if that matters? First time these two teams are playing each other in New Orleans since that infamous 2018 title game. Saints are 1-0 straight up, and against the spread as a home favorite this year, which they are. It's only the second time. 3-point favorite. I'm staying away from this game.
Yeah, you got ugliness really all about both football teams here. The Rams in total disarray. A Super Bowl champion that overspent money on players is they're cap locked. They're not going to be able to make a move for 3 or 4 years. And New Orleans has got a head coach that's really on the hot seat here right now, in Dennis Allen. I think he's going to be a 1 year wonder as a head coach. I was a little bit surprised when they hired him because, he wasn't that good looking. Ooh, yeah, he's going to help us type of a coach.
It's like they kind of felt obligated.
I think so.
Yeah, which I was okay with. He'd been a head coach before. Okay, let's see what he can do. The defense is really good, but yeah, I mean, it's time to look at hiring another offensive guy.
I think for sure. And if their losing ways continue, that will be the case. But this is a mess. I got to say completely that.
Yeah, and they got to get a quarterback too. They got to draft a quarterback. Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Speaking of Cincinnati, and boy, what a difference with Pittsburgh with J.J. Watt back, huh? So
yeah.
It's completely different.
Big emotional charge they got from that as well.
Yeah. Great player. They upset Cincinnati week 1. We remember that crazy finish. Cincinnati couldn't kick the ball. No Jamar Chase. But I think Cincinnati won't get swept by Pittsburgh, so I'll take Cincinnati in this one. They've covered 6 out of the last 7.
I'll throw a nice stat at you here. In same-season division revenge games, the last 18 times Cincinnati's been in them, they're 16-2 against the spread.
Oh, say that again?
Same-season division revenge. Cincinnati, 16-2, the last 18 to the spread.
Okay.
And that football game they lost was, 1, their home opener, 2, they buried Pittsburgh in the yards, 432 to 267. It was 5-0 turnovers that ate that football team up here. I think Cincinnati's going to come with fire in their eyes in this game.
And by the way, I don't know if I said, I always confuse it, but it's T.J. Watt, not J.J.
Yes.
All right, Dallas and Minnesota, and everybody's wondering about the line in this one. How can the Cowboys be a 1.5? How can they be favored in a game against Minnesota with 1 loss? And both of these teams, by the way, are playing on Thanksgiving. Dallas will host the Giants, and Minnesota will host New England. See, Minnesota and New England have got that new third game. That'll be the primetime game. But how about this one? Playbook Magazine says Dallas is 0-13 against the spread as an NFC favorite of less than 4 when they take on teams with a .666 winning percentage or better. That is not some crazy, convoluted kind of, sideways trend. That is just a pretty simple trend that's 0-13. And I'm definitely taking Minnesota as well because, they're just being disrespected as being an underdog in this one, even though Dallas has had their number the last couple of years.
Well, a couple of things here. I like Minnesota in the game. I think this is a bad number. I think the better football team is Minnesota. They should be the favorite in the contest here.
Is that because of total yards?
Exactly. And look at the win-loss records, the body of work. The biggest thing that concerns me is Kirk Cousins. He's had a really good year, and he's been knocked down for a lot of the wrong reasons in the past. But in his career against teams that are +4 games or more. More wins and losses, and they have a net of +4 or more. He was 2-18 straight up. He's now 3-18 because he won the game last week. That's the role he's going to be in here in this particular contest here.
So it was not like a real pretty win at the end of that game. That's for sure. They did a lot of nice things, but all Buffalo had to do was not fumble at their own goal line, and the game was over.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was crazy. That's, if a struggling team does that, man, are they gonna get hammered by the local and national media? But because it's the Bills and they'll kind of forgive him, that kind of thing. Okay, but boy, I just couldn't imagine if that happened to Zach Wilson and the Jets. In that situation, boy, would they hammer him in New York for a week. So, but hey, you know what? They had to complete that 4th and 25 or something like that, which
exactly.
I don't even know how they can blame, and you can blame the defensive back for Buffalo, who shouldn't even be in there, by the way, because Buffalo has injuries in the secondary, for not knocking the ball down on 4th down that went to Jefferson. But really, he's the guy Who else is going to get a 4th and 25? Who else? You think he's going to Adam Thielen for 25, 30 yards down the field? He's going to go to KJ Jefferson. How do you put him in a position where he doesn't have a guy right next to him, in front and behind him?
Double or triple team him. You have to. Right.
Okay, Las Vegas at Denver. I just wanted to bring this game up. Denver 5-14-1 at home against the spread in the last 20. That's ugly. And the Raiders beat Denver this year by 9, week 4, and they've won 5 straight and 7 of 8 versus Denver. All of that is the reason why I'm not touching the game. But I don't know what's going on right now, other than, like I said, this is just. I think right now it's just so obvious to everybody that Derek Carr is no longer going to be there when the season's over. But he's there, and he's going to keep being thrown out there. And this is just a very mentally fragile team. So, and to tell you the truth, Denver's no better with the whole thing going on with Wilson and the coach. So I don't know why anybody would touch this game. It's
a train wreck of a game in Vegas, the train wreck of a team in the National Football League this year. It's like they've got the COVID and they can't get past it. They lose every week in more mysterious ways than they did the week before. There's no way in the world you can make a case to get on them. And like you say, Denver is not a bettable football team. All the trends you can talk about in the past, what Denver's done, what Vegas has done, so forth, they have to go out the window here because it's the current form for these two teams, and it stinks on both sides.
Prime time games, and you have the Chiefs and the Chargers, and I lost on the Chargers last week, but I'm going right back to the Chargers on the money line this week. They're 2-1 on the money line, and they're in a better spot because the Niners, were in a much more needed game. They were at home. They're a better defensive team than the Chiefs. But Chargers can move the ball with the Chiefs, especially if they get back, which it looks like they will get back, Mike Williams. He's leaning towards coming back, and they might even get Keenan Allen back. And Jared Everett might actually play, even though he's banged up. Maybe they're all back, but even if they just get Everett and Mike Williams back, I think that they're in a good spot. Let's remember that the two teams played week 2. Chiefs came back. I believe that was a comeback win, right, by the Chiefs?
I believe it was, yes.
Because the Chargers almost had that game. So that was a close game as always, because if you look at it, yes, the Chiefs have won just 3 out of the last 5 with the Chargers, but the Chargers have covered 4 out of 5, including the game they lost earlier this year by 3 points as a 4-point road dog. So I definitely like the 5, but I'm going to go ahead and roll the dice on the 2-1 money line. And by the way, the Chiefs also have injuries to their wide receivers, and Juju Smith's dealing with another concussion. I can't imagine he's playing.
So I got to ask you a question. Do the Chargers win this game straight up?
I believe they're going to.
Okay, if they don't, they're just 4-38 to the spread as a home dog when they don't win. They don't.
Oh, so therefore, this is a spot that if you like the Chargers, take the money line.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So that's that. That's
good one.
Where I was leading.
I'm glad I have him as my money line play.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So,
that worked out.
I'll let you have the game though. I really don't like the game, but good luck.
And Monday night in Mexico, Arizona and San Francisco. I was very surprised. Now look, here's the thing. I know why they're an 8-point favorite, but do I really care that Colt McCoy's playing? No. Why do I care? He just proved that he could do just fine if he's the quarterback for a couple of weeks. He has the receivers out there. They might get Marquise Brown back also on Monday night. That's possible. And Arizona is 3-1 in the last 4 versus San Francisco. They swept them last year. Plus, the Niners are 2-5 as a favorite this year against the spread. And they're 1-3 straight up and against the spread as a road favorite this year. So, yeah, I'm taking the points in this one. I was thinking of taking the money line. I might still sprinkle some money on the money line. Maybe what I'll do is, since it's a Monday night game, maybe I'll take a parlay and I'll do that as the first game. And then I'll take them, pick a game later in the week and Thanksgiving to kind of see because I don't want this as my last game with the money line because I don't trust Arizona that much. But anyway, I'd take Arizona in the points at least.
I think we're going to see Kyler Murray here. Number one, it's a Monday night game.
Okay.
Game, in Mexico. So if he's at all able to play, we're going to see him on the field. If he doesn't, McCoy has made 3 starts for this football team as a dog. He's covered all 3 times. Either way, I'm going to take the points in this football game as well. I think a big effort from an Arizona football team here. A division team is a dog, and that's what Kingsbury is all about. We call this out in our newsletter, and it's an incredible stat. In fact, it ends up being our incredible stat of the week. that as a head coach in the National Football League, Cliff Kingsbury owns a better straight-up record when he's an underdog than he does when he's a favorite. As an underdog, he's 17, 16, and 1. As a favorite, he's 11 and 14. Go figure. I mean, it just tells you how his teams play much, much better in the role of an underdog here. I got to grab the points here in this game.
Him and Jeff Brom.
There you go.
It's
there you
kind
go.
of the same.
Yep.
Yeah. I like that dog roll.
Yes, they do.
And look, I tell you the truth, I'd rather take I'd rather take Arizona with 8 with Colt McCoy probably, because I don't know if how much that line's going to go down if Kyler Murray. I mean, bottom line is, I would take the game right now if you could still get 7 or 8, because if Murray plays, that line's got to go down a couple of spots, doesn't it?
Well, I think it'll go down. I don't think as much as you think. I think it's 7.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's not a lot of respect for Murray out there right now these days.
Apparently not.
No.
All right. Sounds good, Mark. What's coming up next week? You still going to be able to do a show even though there's Thanksgiving on the horizon?
Yeah, we're going to do a show even though there's Thanksgiving on the horizon. We're gonna make a wish, split that wishbone, that turkey wishbone, and look forward to turkey shoot next week. So I like turkey shoot week, and there's a lot of good games we can talk about next week.
Yeah, and then that'll be on the Playbook Experts show, so check that out on the Playbook Experts YouTube channel. And then we'll have to figure out whether or not we'll do our show on a Wednesday or a Friday. So we'll work on that.
That sounds.
But again, everyone know this because it's important that if we are not doing a show on a Wednesday, and you notice that, then and that means we're going to do it on Friday, then definitely go over to Playbook Experts, because Mark and Victor and those guys will be talking about the Thanksgiving games. And then if we do a show on Friday, we won't have the opportunity to do that. So go on over to Playbook Experts, and you should go over there anyway. But go over there if you want to know what's going on for the Thanksgiving Day games, in case we don't return until next Friday. So if we don't, happy Thanksgiving to everybody, including you, Mark. I'll see you before that anyway, one way or another. And all my best.
Have a great Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much whipped cream on your pie. That's all I can say, Greg.
Sorry, I will.
Okay.
I don't know. We can't do anything about that. So, thanks, Mark.
All right. Be good. Bye-bye.